What's up, Adventure Family? I'm here to recap the reason that I started my journey, what I've done in the last year, and where I'm at right now, and why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. So, to give new people to my channel a fresh update, my mom passed away in September of 2023. I became homeless completely. I lived in a van before that, but I became completely shelterless December of 2023 in Minnesota. Now it's real cold in Minnesota, and like it's not a fun place to be outside. So I went into the shelter system. And I learned what that side of life, the side of life that all of you watching me, or most of you watching me, want to drive past and ignore and not even give a shit about. And you don't even realize that that's part of the reason that those people act the way they do. But I digress, that's for a different day. I spent longer than I needed to in the homeless situation in Minnesota. And I say that because I have a job resume that allows me to get work anywhere. I also have a mentality that allows me to walk into 4 different towns and find work when I want to. Boots, come! Look, I left the St. Paul, Minneapolis area around June of last year, 2024. I walked 42 miles in 24 hours. I ended up at a campground. I actually went to the area to work for a buddy of mine that just started a new business. And because of my situation, he thought he could take advantage of me, and I wasn't going to do it. That said, I found a campground. And I talked to the owner and I said, hey man, you give me $25 a day, I'll do some work around here. So I painted picnic tables. I cut down trees, I did some grunt labor for the bare minimum of being able to eat. And then when I left that town, I biked like 45 some odd miles up the Central Lakes Trail up in Minnesota. If you want to Google it, you can find what I'm talking about is true. So I'm riding up that trail, and I was going to go to Fergus Falls and hop on a bus and head out west towards Colorado because I've always wanted to live out there. And I was taking my time because at the end of the day, I had no schedule. I was on my own schedule. As long as I was fed, slept, watered, I can move at my own speed. I was on Tinder because part of the way that I would shower along the way is through Tinder messages. And this person offered me a place to stay that was 45 miles directly opposite the way that I was going. And this is what I talk about when God or the universe will open some doors just to get you in a certain place so that he can close that door because it's a bad door, but it'll open up another one that's the right door, the good door. So this person that offered me the place to stay, she was a meth head, she was a drunk, and she ended up kicking me out the day before I started work in the town bar as a cook. And I went to the campground on the outskirts of town. I wasn't able to pay for it yet because I didn't have a paycheck. And I'm living there and I'm hoping every day that things just go okay. Well, one day I get off of work and I go back to that campground, and there's a chick there that sees me like drop off my bag and my food bag from work, and I go to the woods and I grab my duffel bag out the woods. She's like, man, what's up with you? You want to smoke? Yeah, okay. So I told them what was up, and they offered me to like be introduced to her cousin that lived in a town 25 miles over, and he had a place, a basement, that he was willing to let me stay in for free. Okay, cool. Now the only thing is that she had an Escalade or a Suburban. She didn't have space for the bike that I had at the time, so if I went 25 miles that way, I knew I had to walk back 25 miles. That's a different story that I'm also going to tell within this, because it's awesome. It's amazing. Now, thing is I get out there, I stay at this dude's place. I get there at like 8 p.m. In the morning, I wake up at like 10, 11. Small town world, not everything opens up like big world shit, right? So like the bars in town aren't opening until 11 or noon. The cook places. So I go into each one of them, 3 or 4 of them in town, and I have a job within my first 3 hours of walking around this town. Now, this whole story gets even better by the fact that, like, when I knew that I went to that town to take a chance 25 miles away, I was going to have to walk 25 miles back. The average person walks 3 miles an hour. I was looking at like an 8-9 hour walk, maybe 10 depending on how many breaks I took. Boats, come! I looked up at the sky because that was actually the day of my 31st. Yeah, fuck off. 31st birthday. And I looked up at the sky and I said, Mom, you know I'll walk this 25 fucking miles. I will. But it'd be really cool if you got me a ride the last quarter of the way, and she did. And that person ended up being my long-term friend, Jerica, up in Minnesota, that I've made posts about before and whatnot. And I still love the lady. However, we've cut contact. That's a different story. Learning to lose people and gain people. But so, like, I meet Jerica, and Jerica has a camper for me to rent for $300 in the backyard of her place in that small town in Minnesota. While I'm there, I start cooking for her. I start making sure that, like, she goes to work with breakfast or lunch, or I'm making dinner. I'm cleaning up the backyard, mowing, doing my part to say thank you for accepting somebody that you don't know into your world. I stayed with her from... I want to say I stayed with her from like September to... Well, no, it would have been July to September. Duh! Holy crap. I'm forgetting my own timeline real quick. It would have been from like July to early August to November 9th, because November 9th is the day that I got dropped off in Harrisonville by her. And me and Boots lived under a tarp for a week and a half before we had a place for him to stay during the day, because I walked into the town and I talked to the dog groomer in town first, because if you're not going to take care of me, you'll take care of my dog. cool. She did. I walked in there, asked her how much to wash him up. She said $30. Looked me up and down and was like, "You're homeless, aren't you?" Oh, yeah, yeah. I'll watch him for free. And I'll also watch him while you're looking for work. So I wintered over in Harrisonville, Missouri. Come February 5th, I quote unquote got fired, but I got fired in boots. I got fired intentionally. I was done with the management style within Branding Iron in Harrisonville, and anyways, they fired me, and within a week, I had the homestead that I went and stayed on, and I worked for Jeannie and Neil, and I brought their giant garden back so that they were able to plant their winter. Shut up! So that they were able to plant their like winter veggies, winter foods for canning. They had a daughter that passed away from cancer, and they semi-quit life for a while. And when I found their ad on the website that I was looking at for like places to go learn new skills, they said that we were in disaster recovery, and that's the entire reason that I went there. Jeannie has now become my chosen grandpa or grandma. Neil, he's a chosen grandpa too. Our dogs didn't get along on the property, and they're elderly. Jeannie's 74 and Neil's 68. He's got a bad back of his heart. They have a certain speed and a way they do things on their property, and me being a city boy coming out there trying to do and be me in their world with my dog, well, the dogs didn't get along, and I just had too much energy. Fair enough. Me and Jeannie still text all the time. Her grandson and I still text often as well. And so when we decided that it was time for me to leave the homestead, she offered to drive me 4 hours north to the southern terminal of the Ozark Trail in Missouri. And I started out on that trail when I started out walking across the country. I got about 14 miles, and tornadoes had tore through that area, and I was literally cutting myself wet with a handsaw. All the way through with a handsaw. So when I had the ability to reach a highway and start road walking, that's what I did. And from there, I've experienced blessing after blessing after blessing. I met Mike, the chief of fire, and never mind, I'm not going to say the town. But I met him, and he put me in boots and another guy that I had met in a different town that was walking to Oregon up in a hotel for a couple nights. And then he allowed me to go out and cook for the volunteer fire department in his town. And then he took us up the road a bit. And I had some Walmart, like $20 pair of shoes at the time. And he ended up buying me some like $60, $70 pair of shoes. They're actually, no joke, after 80 some odd days, they're actually falling apart. Tragic. I need to buy new shoes now. But I met him, I met his wife, I met his kids. You know, I met another dude walking into Cuba, Missouri that let me stay at his place and bought me dinner for the time being, and drove me a little bit further towards, because I had walked a little bit further north than I should have. at least for the opportunity that was available. So he like took me over to the other opportunity. Fast forward to the spot where I'm at right now. I walked into Dawson Springs the beginning of June, and something just told me to stop. Just stay. Something's here. So I sat at the ball field on the outside of town for a few days, and I kind of got the vibe of the town when I would come into town and go shopping and leave and whatnot. I realized what their pace was, how they operated, how they talked to me. On Friday, when the police kicked me out of the ballpark down there, I had no other choice than to find an option. And I ended up walking into a small store in town on Main Street where the wife of Mark was working. And from there, this story turns wild because I've been here less than 22 days. Within 22 days, the first week was me at that ballpark. That next week was me getting felt out by Mark to see if I would actually show up for work and be a person of my word and be there and do what I said. Yeah, I keep showing up on time or before. I keep getting given a little bit more responsibility and a lot less overload. Oh yeah, wait. Let's backtrack to that first day. That first day that I did work for him. I did good enough work for him that he offered me a place to stay with his sister-in-law. He thought that I was safe enough. And he thought that I was a good enough worker that he was willing to offer that to me. These are things that you have to work for in life. They will not be given to you. This is why I left to be the man that I want to be. Now, Mark gave me the place to stay. I've continued to work for Mark for the last 2 weeks. I go out, hardcore work, doing the grimy stuff. I was putting moldy insulation tubing into moldy wet insulation tubing into trash bags the other day. I just dug like 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of brick and dirt and moved it fucking like 30 feet from this spot to this spot. Some military shit. I don't want it there, I want it there. Fine. No complaints. Just tell me what to do when I do it. I've never once talked to Mark about the money that he pays me hourly. What he's paid me has been completely fair by the math that I've done. And because I've never asked him, because I just do the work, that man felt like it was okay to offer me financing on a property here in town that needs a lot of work, right? But how many other people's story do you know that's like this? And if you analyze why my story is the way that it is, it's because of the grace of God. It's the gift of people, and it's my determination and my hard work, my effort. I believe as long as we put in 75%, the universe and God gives us the other 25% when we need it. Not when we want it, when we need it. Now, this should bring y'all up to speed on what I'm doing. I've accomplished what I set out to do in a much shorter, crazier way than I ever imagined was possible. I knew that it was possible for me to go recreate myself, I didn't know that I was going to walk into a town and have these things set up this quickly as long as I did the work. Go live your dream. Don't let anybody tell you you can't, because they wouldn't or couldn't. And make people believe in you. It's your word, it's your work ethic. Don't be a piece of shit, and you can make something of yourself. Proof.